Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is author Craig Synder, and he is with Papertown Publishing. And like I said, he's an author that has written a very interesting book, and I love the title of this book. It is quite intriguing. The name is The Battle Between Halos and Horns. So today we will be talking about living a spiritual life according to the options of light and darkness. Which kingdom? Which side are you going to be on? So, you know how I usually do. I tell you and I talk about the author, and I read from their bio. But let me tell you, Craig has such an interesting bio. I'm not going to bore you with details. I want him to tell you in his own words his beautiful experiences and the things that he has gone through that has shaped him into the person that he is. So like I said, I want for you to be able to hear from our author ourselves. So again, the title of the book is The Battle Between Halos and Horns, and the author is Craig Snyder, and that's spelled S-N-Y-D-E-R. Good afternoon, good morning, Craig. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Yes, glad to be here.
Yes. Now, I know that you have shared so much in your bio. For example, you said like one day in June 2005, after finishing your latest Bible project, you said to the Lord, let's do something really special. But I want for you to be able to tell us about your life. So what would you like to share about who you are and what you've done before we start talking about your book?
Well, I didn't really get saved, born again, filled with the Holy Spirit till I was 23. Mm-hmm. And right after that, my life changed dramatically because I used to do drugs and drinking and all sorts of stuff. And once I gave that up and found the Lord, and the Lord worked with me, I fell in love with the Bible. And I always had a Bible project. And after 25 years, I said, Lord, let's do something else, something really special. And this is where I got the idea, the battle between halos and horns, because a great deal of life is just that. It's a battle. And you find out eventually there's two sides, the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. And eventually it doesn't take long before you find out which side you're on, and the other people find out which side you're on. And then they typically hate your guts or love you because you're on their side. So I made up this novel about the battle between halos and horns simply because a great deal of life has a lot to do with that.
Now, you mentioned that your daughter Miranda was only 5 months away from her 16th birthday, and there was something that kind of happened there that inspired you. Can you tell us about that?
Well, you know, as a father, you want the best for your children, and she was the only offspring I had, so I wanted to make sure she was headed in the right direction. And coming up on 16, you know, boys and all that is a big thing, and so I wanted to explain some of that stuff, and I wanted to get some of the biblical ideas and the biblical principles that I know and trust into her mind so that she could use those principles and steer her own life in a smart fashion, because as you know, a lot of us, we make mistakes. We make a lot of mistakes. And we don't have to make them all ourselves. You know, we could learn from somebody else's example. So the book was how I was hoping she could make the mistakes in the book and then learn from the book and not have to do this mistake in real life.
A wonderful way of looking at that. Now, I see, and I love that you shared this, that you have a quote that you share, and you write it as though it's scripture, which makes it extra cute, and it's found in the book of Dad, chapter 1, verse 1, and it says, "A wise man makes learning joyful." I love that. How did you come up with that quote?
Well, actually, I came out of that with my head, and I said to myself, where is that in the Bible? And I called up my brother, who's just as knowledgeable in the Bible as I am, and I said to him, where is that verse? He said, I've never heard of it. So I said, I think I made that up myself. And then I decided to just keep right on going. Actually, this book has, I think, 2 chapters of death. And every time the Lord would speak something to me, I would just put it down, Dad 1:7, Dad 1:8, and I kept going until we had 2 chapters.
Wow, that is so awesome. I love how God has those moments with us, and that when we are so mindful and we're open to receive it, it can really turn into so much more than we realize that it ever could be. Well, speaking of the book, and again, listeners, the title of the book is The Battle Between Halos and Horns. I want to ask you, what is the book about? Just in case someone came in a little bit later, what is the book about?
Well, it's basically a spiritual book. It is entertaining, and it is funny, and you will learn something, vital, important stuff. But the main subject is a spiritual subject. So if we have main characters, like a lot of books do, these main characters have angels, like in real life, you have a guardian angel if you're saved. And if not, you're going to find out that there's demonic beings, demons, that will try to steer you in the wrong direction, while the angels try to steer you in the right direction. And basically, it's a battle inside your mind, as both of them are trying to get you to go to their end result or their kingdom. So the angels want you to go to heaven with God, and the demons want you to go to hell and suffer forever. So what could be more important than making that decision? And most people don't even think about it, and they spend all their life, and it's gone, and then they end up in one of those 2 places without really giving it any thought.
Now, did you know that you wanted to write a book that was going to address these particular themes? Like, was this always inside of you, or did you find that as you were writing, the themes kind of morphed or developed into what you have now?
Well, people want to talk about, or at least if you had a daughter and you wanted to educate her or warn her about the future, you wouldn't tell her something she already knows. You would tell her something she doesn't know and something that's vitally important so you could steer her in the right direction. So talk about the spiritual knowledge. How many people, even Christians, know very much about spiritual rules, knowledge, what the enemy can do, what they can't do? How do you get the demons out of your house? Are they in my house? How can I tell? All this stuff becomes a mystery. Most people, even Christians, have no clue whatsoever. So I thought, you know what, not only is this good for my daughter to educate her, but I'm going to try to educate everybody else, because basically I wrote this book to my daughter. I even started it out with Dear Miranda, and therefore I'm trying to educate specifically my daughter. But, anybody else reading this is going to be able to eavesdrop on the conversation, and they're going to pick up a lot of wisdom along the way. So, yeah, you're right about stuff that hopefully you can educate them in the right direction.
Now, how long did it take you to write the book? Did you find that it was an easy process, or was it more of a labor of love, that it just took a little bit of time?
I've seen movies before in the past where these people are writing a book or they're writing a novel, and they sit there with a blank page in front of their face, and they try to write the first 5 words, and they can't. Well, that was never the case with me. I mean, I sat down, and I wanted to teach and show her what I already knew and learned. Sometimes I had to learn it the hard way, but I learned it. But when I went down to explain everything I knew, much to my chagrin, here the Lord sitting down with me, and he said, well, what about this? Well, did you know about that? How about this idea? And I couldn't write fast enough. I mean, he was just spouting off stuff left and right. And, I mean, sometimes I'd go to bed at night, and he would wake me up at 3 in the morning with a great idea. And I said to myself, if I wait till morning, it'll be gone. So I'm just going to get up now and write it all down. And I spent hours at night. So you take the Lord's wisdom when he gives it to you.
That is so true. One of the things that I tell people that are coming for therapy sessions is to have a little notepad and pen or pencil on your bedside table or in the drawer or in a basket, wherever it is that's accessible, easily, readily available to you, so that when you have a dream or when the Lord gives you something, that you can write it down. Because like you say, you go back to sleep, you wake up, and then you struggle for the rest of the day trying to put the pieces back together of this epiphany or this wonderful vision or answer that you have been given, and you just can't quite do it. That is a really great piece of advice. Now, it is almost time for us to go to break, and I want to make sure that anyone who came in a little bit later, perhaps they did not hear, I want to make sure that folks are able to follow you on social media, or they're able to get to you on the internet, I should say. What is the best way, Craig, for people to pick up a copy of your book and to stay in contact with you?
Well, I would just get the book at Amazon, and the title is, again, The Battle Between Halos and Horns. I think that there isn't a person on this planet that can't benefit from this, and at the same time, they're going to have a good time.
And one more question for you, and that is, if there's someone out there who is thinking about becoming an author and they feel that they have a book inside of them somewhere, what bit of advice would you give to them about going on and, taking that step and becoming the author that they believe they could be?
Well, in my case, I would have to say, if you're saved, don't count the Lord out. The minute you go to write down what you think you know, the Lord knows 100 times 1,000 more than that. So expect him to jump in and help you. Now, if you don't know the Lord, you might want to do that first, because he is a great asset to have with you. And when he comes to give you some knowledge or wisdom, it's kind of like if the president was coming by your town and happened to see you and gave you a word, would you write it down, or would you say, I'll get that later? No, you would take time to write it down or right now, because it's going to come and then it's going to go.
What a great piece of advice. Well, listeners, we need to take a very short break, but when we get back, we will definitely continue this conversation with author Craig Synder about his book, The Battle Between Halos and Horns. We'll be back right after this.
Are you ready to ignite your Christianity? Grab your copy of this amazing new book called A Heart Aflame, 10 Days to Ignition by top author John Willis Williams Jr. This book will give you the spiritual passion you need and will get you moving forward in your faith. This book will be hard to put down. It's now available at Amazon, iTunes, and Barnes & Noble. A Heart Aflame by John Willis Williams Jr. Get your copy today.
Are you sick and tired of going to the big retail chains and just not finding anything you like for a price you can afford? Fashion Affair is not like the big box stores. We realize the need for women's fashion at an affordable price. At fashionaffair.com, you'll find everything from apparel, accessories to shoes, beauty products, and so much more for today's modern woman. We even have a kids section. Start saving today by going online to fashionaffair.com. That's fashionaffair.com.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butts-Chester. I have an awesome guest today, and his name is Craig Synder. His company is Paperton Publishing, and the book is The Battle Between Halos and Horns. And from that beautiful title, you can get kind of an idea of what we're talking about. Living a spiritual life. And, which side do you want to be on? We always have the decision between lightness and darkness, and which team do we want to be a part of. We're talking kingdom living. We're talking kingdom building today, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. So, Craig, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about being an author, and that is, what is the process like for you? Many times, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and I like to ask all of my authors this: we have the stereotypical example in the movies where you have the author that goes off to the log cabin and they need the peace and quiet, the serenity of nature to, hammer out this book. But then you have some people that are, writing their book on the metro, like on the train, a little bit every day. What was the process like for you in getting what was in your head out and into this novel form?
Well, those that go to the cabin, they're looking for some quiet time because they need to get their creative juices going. But once the story has been told, or maybe you're into the editing part, now you could be on a train on your way to work and you're just editing it. You don't need to hear anything new. But hearing from God, as far as I'm concerned, is the lion's share of the creativity. So, yeah, I'd go to my computer room and in the quiet of the day, I'd just start with what I know. And it's kind of like God, being my big brother, would sit behind me and say, oh, okay, I understand that, but what about this? You didn't think about that. Here's another idea. And he's got more ideas than I can write down. So, yeah, that's the part I liked about it.
Now, just in case we have someone who's joining the show a little bit later, if you could briefly touch on it again for us, please. What was the inspiration behind writing your book, The Battle Between Halos and Horns?
Well, the inspiration back when I started was to help and guide my daughter, who at the time was coming up on her 16th birthday. So and here's the thinking. I thought, well, I'll have this done and I'll have it in her lap before 16. Really? That was my original thought. But, yeah, it took a little longer than that. And then as I started to do this, more knowledge and critiquing the knowledge and making it better. And here we are 13 years later. It's perfected. It's ready,
Well, isn't it wonderful how the Lord knows in his perfect timing when something is ready and when it isn't? But, kudos to you, though, for following and being obedient to what the Lord had placed on your heart and saying, I need to at least start this process. I need to do this. And not trying to hurry it through or trying to, rush it out to the public because you were trying to meet your timeline. Instead, you knew that it needed to be in God's timeline. And I really love that you did that. So I want to ask you, one of the things that people always say is, well, we have to do something that's going to stand out. We need to do something that's going to be unique. You have to find your niche. And everyone who's probably ever talked to their marketing department or is nodding their head saying, yep, that's what they say. So I want to ask you, what makes your book unique, or what makes your book different, do you think?
Well, if you read 10,000 books, you still wouldn't read a book anywhere close to mine. My book is unique because of the subject, and then you might think, well, how unusual is this subject? It's really not, because a really unusual subject, like how the inner workings of a carburetor works, it's only going to interest a few people. But this subject is truly for everyone, and everyone will definitely benefit. And once you learn the rules, and I don't want to sound too techie, but once you learn the rules, you're suddenly, almost an expert in the field, and now the demons can't pull the wool over your eyes. You know how they get in your house. You know how to get them out of your house. You start to see with spiritual eyes, kind of like a person with glasses on, as opposed to everybody else who's walking around with these blurry eyeballs. Now you see clearly. And then you can help your friend, your brother, mother, sister, husband, whoever's in a bad marriage. You got the answers. So this subject, unusual as it is, really affects everybody, because after they read this book, they're going to say, man, this was the smartest move I ever made. I had no idea the spiritual world involved all of this. I had no idea that yesterday's argument had a lot to do with the demons we let in based on what we did the week before. And all this stuff matters, and it all comes and works synergistically together, but unless your eyes are open, you're going to miss it all. And it's like we're all a motorist, and we go out on the road. But if you don't know what a stop sign is for, if you don't have a clue what a red light means, you're going to get into trouble.
Right.
And so knowing the rules, you know, as bothersome as that might sound, it's important. It's imperative. You have to know the rules. And nothing is more important than the spiritual rules. So that's why I decided to write about that. But at the same time, I decided that, like it says here in Dad 1:2, laughter is the lubricant of life. You have to make it fun. A wise man makes learning joyful. So if I can make it fun and you're having a happy time, but at the same time you're learning something, you don't mind learning something because you're having a good time.
And I like how you were very mindful of how you were writing the book, which leads me to the next question for you, and that is, how has your faith played a role in writing the book? Do you think that because you are a believer, that you approach the book from a different perspective?
Well, Philippians 3:20 says that my citizenship is not of this world. It's in heaven. So I'm simply passing through the earth. Now, I might be here for a short time, and that short time might be 70 whatever years. But the bottom line is I'm headed for heaven. And with that in mind, that's how I write the book. I'm not all that worried about money. I'm not all worked up about who I'm going to meet. The most important thing is, did I get the Christianity right? And if there's anything else I still have to learn, by all means, Lord, tell me what it is today.
I have to agree with you on that one. Just did I get the Christianity portion right? All the other things will come to you. You are so right with that. Well, I want to ask, it has such an interesting title, and there may be someone thinking, well, this book sounds like it's a little heavy, that it might be serious. Would you say that you've added, but then you have your dad quotes in there. So do you think that it's a balance kind of humor, of information, but there is a little heaviness to it to make sure that people understand and get the point of that life includes a little bit of everything, all dynamics of what we go through?
Well, for instance, you do radio, and that's part of your knowledge. But that doesn't stop your knowledge, and that's not the all in all of your knowledge. You have other hats that you put on. You might be a mother. You might be a wife. You might be a motorist at one time. So we all have different hats. Now, I do have a serious side, but anyone who knows me realizes why I put those first two dad quotes in there about humor, about making it fun. Because anybody that knows me knows that, like my daughter, when I was 6 years old, she went to her mother and said, Dad's funny. And that's just the personality that I am. It's like a gift that God gives you. And so that gift and that personality, it's all through the book. So there's quite a bit of humor all through it.
And you are very, very right. This is just one avenue of what you do, and that's true, because we do wear all of those hats. I can like see the listeners nodding their heads, going, absolutely. I am one way being mom. I am one way when I am wife. I am one way as radio host. I'm one way as therapist. So most definitely, I can see what you mean by that, and that is important that we can find that balance, but yet we can still bring out those bits of our personality and be able to share that at the appropriate time. Well, what is one of the main things that you want for any reader of your book to have as a takeaway?
Well, they're not going to be able to miss the Bible. Now, there are people that they don't like the Bible. They don't want to be bothered with it. But I got to tell you, the Bible is what I do. It is 8 to 10 hours a day. People say to me, well, what do you do for fun? I read the Bible and do my Bible project and write all my stuff. And when I do, the Lord helps me. He's my best friend. He helps me do everything. So they're not going to be able to miss the Bible part of this. I can't help but put it out of me because that's what I put into me.
Right.
You know, so if you put R-rated movies into your head, don't be too surprised if R-rated movies come out of your mouth. That's just how it works. So 38 years of Bible, what do you think he's going to say? I'll bet it has something to do with the Bible. Yeah, they're not going to miss that part. But here's the thing. I have to be mindful that not everybody wants the Bible, not everybody wants to hear about it. Half the time you get people that flat out say, shut up about your Bible, I don't want to hear it. So this is why we go to the humor and we throw in the wisdom and the knowledge. We apply it to their life and say, you know, are you arguing with your wife? Do you know why you're arguing with your wife? Because of yesterday's R-rated movie, because of yesterday's illegal deal, or whatever it is you did to let the evil spirits in your house. Now, it's hard enough for a husband and wife to get along, but if we add an evil spirit, do you think that's going to help? I'll bet not. And you wonder where that argument came from? Surprise! So now it isn't so stupid, is it? Now it actually has a meaning and a point and a purpose, and if I show you how to get these things, and I repeat the word things, out of your house, you might even be grateful that you read this book.
I love it. I love it. And boy, there's somebody right now that is shaking their head, they're nodding their head, they are laughing like I am because you've heard someone ask those questions. You've heard someone make those comments. I don't understand why we argue all the time. But like you said, it's like, what did you put in during the week? Because that's what's going to come out. I love that reminder. That was a nugget there, everyone. That was a nugget. I hope that you were able to grab a hold of that. Well, before we go to break, Craig, I want you to remind our listeners, where can they pick up a copy of your book?
Amazon would be a great place to get the book. Again, the name is The Battle Between Halos and Horns.
Well, listeners, we need to take a very short break, but when we get back, we will continue this conversation with author Craig Synder. We'll be back right after this.
Being a new mom brings lots of worries. One of my biggest worries with my little one was bath time. That was until I found the Omni Bath Visor. Now your little one can be protected from ear infections and dry drowning. Just slip the Omni Bath Visor over your baby's head at bath time, and water rolls right over the bill. Plus, the Omni Bath Visor is recommended by leading pediatricians. Bath time has never been more fun without the tears or phobias. Buy your Omni Bath Visor today on Amazon.
Hi everyone, Dr. Angela here. Did you know that Daily Spark is now on Facebook? That's right, you can visit with me at facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I want to know more about what you're thinking. I'd love to know, which interview did you find the most entertaining or the most informative? I want to talk to you, and I want you to be able to talk to me. Simply visit facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Buck-Chester. My guest today is author Craig Synder, and he has written a very intriguing book entitled The Battle Between Halos and Horns. Absolutely, it is what you think it is. What's going on in your spiritual life? We are dealing with the differences between light and darkness. We're talking kingdom living and being a kingdom builder today, and I absolutely love it. I love how, Craig, that you have included a bit of your personality. Everybody knows that I am a glass half full type of person, and I love it when you can put a bit of your personality in there and remind people that there's a different way of looking at things. It's all about your perspective. So thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners. So I want to ask you, and there may be someone who joined the show a little bit later, I want to ask, how long have you been a Christian, and do you believe that has had an influence on how you've chosen to write your book?
Oh, most definitely. 38 years, that's a long time to be doing anything. Mm-hmm. But the good part for me was whenever I was first saved, there was a local coffee house that I attended. Mm-hmm. And at that local coffee house, they had a Bible study, they had a worship time on Saturday. They had stuff that you could do and get out of the world, and it gave you an alternative to getting into trouble. And this is what turned me around. And within a month, here, my most favorite thing to do was to throw the Frisbee in the sunshine with my brothers and friends. Well, there they are. They're out in the backyard. They got the Frisbee. They're throwing it around. Why aren't you out there with them? Well, I got to memorize this James chapter 1, at least the first chapter. And so I stayed indoors on a sunny day when they were doing my number one favorite thing, memorizing chapter 1. And it didn't happen easy. It took a lot of time. And so hours went by. They're out there sweating and having a good time. I'm in here studying the Bible, trying to memorize it. And it's like, why are you doing this? Well, this is important. I mean, memorizing the Word of God, don't you see? This is like treasure, and I have to have it. So you think, I don't understand you. Well, that's because maybe you're not saved. Maybe you don't understand the power of the Bible or the power of God. I mean, so I placed God ahead of the number one thing I always wanted to do. Well, those kind of people, they're going to go somewhere. They're going to write a book. They're going to do something unusual because they're so dedicated to God. And that's the way I started out.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I want to give you time if you would like to. Is there a favorite passage in your book, or is there a favorite quote in your book? Is there something in your book that you find that you always like to share, or you tend to share because you think that it really needs to be read, or that it really needs to be shared with a particular person or a particular audience?
Well, I have my number one favorite verse, Proverbs 13:20. A wise man makes, you're doing the same one there. Now you got that. Your wise man makes learning joyful. Oh, I can't get that out of my head.
Well, apparently that's what you were supposed to share for today, because that means that somebody needed to hear that one.
Yeah. But anyway, it all comes down to who you hang around. If you hang around R-rated movies, if you hang around wild people that are doing drugs, you're going to end up reflecting them. And rather than if you hang around the Bible, you're going to have little choice but to spit the Bible out whenever the time comes. So that's the thing that I try to do.
And yes, thank you so much. It's all about teamwork over here. Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. That is an awesome scripture. Thank you.
Yeah, that's because people end up like they hang around. So that's why I try to tell my daughter, if you keep hanging around the boozers, you're going to end up boozing. If you hang around the druggies, you're going to end up drugging it. So it all comes down to who are you hanging around?
That's right. That's right. I remember hearing an uncle of mine, and I thought that this was the funniest thing because I was maybe 7 or 8, and I know everyone's familiar with this one. He said, you lay down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. And as a little kid, I just thought that was hilarious because you would see the dog scratching, and it's like, oh no, who wants to wake up with fleas? But it is so true. It is absolutely true that there's nothing that like having those like-minded people around you, because not only are they able to understand your perspective as a Christian, but they're also able to help you with that accountability of keeping you, on the path that you're supposed to be on. They're not going to easily let you, slide off and go do something that you're not supposed to do. They're going to say, no, time for us to go home, or time for us to leave, or, whatever it is to really keep us on the right path. Well, I know that we have talked about your book, and I have so enjoyed that. And listeners, if you want to definitely read the book, please, by all means, type in The Battle Between Halos and Horns. Of course, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it where books are sold, so make sure that you pick up a copy of that. If you don't mind, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit, because I love to pick the brain of the authors that we have here, just in case we have any aspiring authors that are listening. So I want to ask, when you are writing, do you find that when you're in writer mode, does that energize you, or does that exhaust you?
Oh, no, that's why I'm able to do the 8 to 10 hours a day. I don't stay here trying to crack out one more hour. I can barely make it. No, this is the greatest thing in the world, and the only reason I get out of the chair is because I'm hungry. I got to go to the bathroom or something. Otherwise, I'd be here all day.
I love it. Yes. It is because it's something that you want to do, and you're so happy and excited to be there and to be able to do it. I have to agree with you. It energizes me as well. I have to agree. Now, some people believe that there is a thing called writer's block. Some people even say that they have experienced it. Others haven't. So what are your thoughts on this thing called writer's block?
Well, writer's block, and I have to assume because I've never had it, but they have a block because they can't create what they're trying to say or get into what they're trying to say. After 38 years, 8 to 10 hours a day, am I going to have a writer's block? My goodness, what I want to say is the Bible. You've been doing this forever and a day, morning, noon, and night. I can't see a writer's block, so I can only speculate that apparently that's the problem. They don't know their subject that well.
I can see how you come to that answer. Now, so many times when we are doing seminars and we're talking about life phases and stages and planning our lives and how do we make sure that we work the plan? How do we reverse engineer our goals? So this question is kind of in that vein of thought. If you could tell your younger writer self anything, like what would that be? Or perhaps it's not even, well, I didn't really want to write when I was a younger person, but I do have a bit of wisdom that I'd like to share with my younger self. Does that apply to you in any way?
What would I tell my younger self? Well, one thing, get saved sooner. Don't wait till you're 23. That's the first thing I tell myself.
Right.
Yeah. And then, some people, they write for money, and that's fine.
Right.
I'm writing because it's fun. So whether I make a nickel or 10 million, it's still fun. It doesn't really matter.
Yes, right. So it's coming from a different place. And like you said, it's not that writing for money is a bad thing, because we have some very talented authors out there that are writing for money, and that's what they're choosing to make as their lifestyle. So I do understand that. That's a really, really great piece of advice. As far as writing is concerned, because we're kind of staying in that vein, has there ever been a bit of advice that another writer has shared with you, or something that perhaps you were reading a book and that writer, not necessarily meaning to, but they brought a different perspective for you, or they gave a bit of wisdom or a nugget in their book, and you've been able to kind of hold on to that and say, great piece of advice. Has that ever happened?
Well, I'm kind of like one of those, hobbits that live on a hill all by himself. I mean, the only one giving me advice is God. And he does that whether I'm sitting behind this computer or whether I'm out taking a walk. He's got plenty to say. And if you've got ears to hear, you can't get better advice. So that's where I get my advice. But I have had other people say things, and whether I read it in a book or, whether I catch it on TV or something, that I say, man, that is really good. But as soon as I hear truth or wisdom, I mean, I got to go to the computer and write it down. And after X amount of years, I have gathered up a lot of wisdom and a lot of really good things. And that's why this book of mine is sort of my book of treasure. Some people open up a treasure chest, they see gold and all these diamonds and things. I open up my book of treasure, and it's wisdom, and it's knowledge, and it's great poems. By the way, there's tons of great literature in my book, either written by me or I give the author's quote. So there's no lack of wisdom here at all. It's tons of it.
So we know that if we go online to get anything nowadays, that there is the potential of a review. I am the type of person, I do leave reviews. I tend to want to leave a positive review if I've had a really great experience. I'm the type of person that I would contact the business themselves, like directly, if I didn't have a good experience, to try to see what the response is going to be before I just put, negativity out there. Because sometimes it's a one-off. Sometimes, maybe your server was having a bad day, or they were really, really packed in, and perhaps they want to redeem themselves. And I say all of that to ask you this. Do you believe that authors should read the book reviews that are given, that are left, be it that it's an editorial review or it's a review from someone who has purchased the books? Do you believe that they should read them, good or bad? Do you think that they should read their reviews and take them to heart?
Oh, they should definitely read the reviews. I mean, a humble man can receive from anyone, where a proud man can't receive from anyone except maybe the Lord, because they're too proud to hear from someone they consider themselves better than. So if you're just humble, knowledge and wisdom will just come to you. On the other hand, if you're proud, you're going to receive pretty much nothing.
You are so right. You are so right. For someone who is saying kind of the flip side, and they're the spouse or they're a family member of someone who is looking to become an author, and this is the last question that I have for you for the day, that is, they may be saying, I want to be supportive, I want to help, but I don't really know what to do. I want to be encouraging. Do you have a bit of advice for the person who's trying to be a member of the support team for the writer?
The support team for the writer. Well, I don't even have a support team. As it is, I'm a single man at the present time.
Gotcha.
And I don't have anybody supporting me other than the Lord. I mean, that's really, that's my everything right there. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be anywhere, and with him, I can do anything. So.
And that is the best support team to have. And don't get me wrong, just in case my husband's listening, not that he isn't important, and just in case my sons are listening, it's not that they're not important, but you are so right that we can be inspired, and God can give us all of the inspiration that we need when we just ready ourselves and allow Holy Spirit to work through us in whatever project that we're doing, be it that it's a short story, it's a quick read, or we're trying to write, the next 400-page novel, that we can sit down and in that inspiration be able to share exactly what the Lord has placed on our heart. Well, Craig Synder, thank you so much for spending time with me today on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I have so enjoyed talking about your book, The Battle Between Halos and Horns. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And listeners, thank you, too, for joining with me today. I hope that you have enjoyed this interview, because I know that I have enjoyed myself today. And as always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Remember, we are here to inspire, enlighten, and empower you to be your best self. Until next time, everyone, be blessed in the Lord. Have a great day. Bye-bye.